why something exists rather than nothing? Well, this is because the way we count. So generally we think that our count always begins with the zero and then one, two, three, and rest of the numbers. But in reality, our count never begins with the zero first. It always begins with something called the principal count. So what is this principal count? So let's say I ask the question like, how many apples do I have? In this question, I am assuming that there exists something called the apples. And that assumption that something called apples exist is itself a count. And that assumption, that count is what we call a principal count. And once I assume that there's something exists called the apples, then I set my dial back again to the zero and then ask the question how many apples I actually have. So it can be zero, it can be one, it can be two, it can be three. So there must something exist called the apples. Then the zero comes later. So this is how we are actually counting. We In our count, something always dominates. The principal count always make something dominate the count. And then after that, we set the dial to nothing or something again, or whether number, how depends on numbers of apples, whatever we have. So this is how we actually count. So another example would be, let's say there's a wall in space and there's an astronaut, okay? And after this wall, there something ends at this wall, okay? So then once astronaut reaches here, the first question he's going to ask is that what's beyond that wall? So the question itself is framed in a way that he is actually treating something or nothing. If something ends here, there has to be nothing. So he is actually treating nothing as something in his original question. So this is how actually we count. We treat nothing as a special case of something. We don't treat nothing, we don't treat something as a special case of nothing. We treat nothing as a special case of something. So it's actually how our brain wired, that we always give a dominance to something. We always think nothing as just a special case of something, not something as a special case of nothing. So the way we count is always gives something a priority, something a baseline, okay? And then we define stuff like nothing and so on. So why does something exist rather than nothing? Because this is the way we count is actually based in giving something a superior existence, and then comes the rest of the counts including nothing. Yeah, that's why. So it's all about due to how we actually count. So another question would be, is it impossible, would it really be impossible for a human mind to think about nothing? Well, this is what I always say, that a system is like a packet of reality itself, and every packet of reality, so every system can be treated as the entire universe. So provided we have a system called something, it can be treated as the universe. And provided we have a system called nothing, even if we are actually thinking about it as a special case of something rather than having its own existence, but still it is actually a system. It is a packet of reality. And any packet of reality can be believed as the entire universe. So I really respect the fact that nothing can itself be imagined as something. And nothing can itself be imagined as the entire universe. The entire universe can be imagined as nothing. So I really respect that packet of reality analogy. So it's up to us how we count and how we believe this stuff. So it's very possible to think about nothing. Yeah.